So many golfers are very similar to a golfer I had in last week who wanted to hit the ball further, particularly with his irons, but just felt the more and more speed he put into his swing, even on a good strike, he just didn't really seem to get the ball going. So we can see there, club head speed nearly 88 mile an hour, ball speed at 110, but a carry with my 7-iron of only 142 yards. So what we spoke about was how good would it be if he didn't feel that he was trying to belt the cover off the ball, so he could actually take some speed out of his golf swing and actually hit the ball further with this very simple little movement and feel. So we see club head speed down, ball speed good, but straight away 10 yards longer. So I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, I like the sound of that. Could I hit my irons further, but actually swing slower? Now, a real key thing is obviously hitting it out the middle of the golf club, but also the amount of loft that we present. So this 7-iron's got 32 degrees of loft on it. But what you see with the tour players, best players in the world, best ball strikers in the world, is coming into impact, they really de-loft the golf club. So they get that forward shaft lean and that creates that compression with the golf ball. And an awful lot's made about kind of lead wrist. And when we've spoken about this with the client I discussed at the start, had no concept what he was doing with lead wrist. But we spoke about the right hand. And because he's a very dominant right-handed player, his awareness on what he could do with his right hand was great. So what we said is the one where he's smashing it, the ball launches really high, and what he's doing coming into impact is adding loft this way. So almost the palm of that right hand is looking to the sky, very like the club face would be. So what we spoke about was how could we get that palm looking more down to the ground? So there was a couple of ways we got him to do it. The first one was to change a little bit of the feel in the backswing. So what we noticed in his backswing is that he tended to fan the club face open. So you can see there the face again looking to the sky. And then on the way down, obviously he's trying to square the club face up this way. So what we said we want to work on is we want to feel that as he swings back, that right hand is going to stay more on top of the golf club. And then coming down into impact, we want to feel like the palm is looking down, and obviously that hand's much more on top of the shaft. And initially, we would say intellectually very easy to do. So what we said is, to begin with, let's do some small swings, so waist height, and try and feel that through impact. And what we noticed straight away is as he set up, made a couple of little swings, and obviously the ball launched much, much lower. And that was very reminiscent of what we see here. Club head speed way down from the length of the swing, but ball speed still at 105 mile an hour, launching at 12 degrees instead of 20, and all of a sudden the carry at 137 was nearly the same as the full shot at the start. And he kind of jokingly made the comment, and obviously I'm going to do it quicker in the video, we hit probably 5 or 6 of those, and he actually started to get a little bit more carry on that waist height swing, getting that right hand on top, and said, I could almost go and play golf like that, which we wouldn't mind, maybe. But we said, right, once we'd done a few of these little short ones, could we then go a little bit longer with the backswing, still feeling right hand more on top, right hand on top to keep loft off. And as we started putting a bit more length into the swing, even the ones that weren't fantastic strikes, we see the club head speed start to pick up. Ball speed obviously picks up even with the missed hit. And then that one at 158, without being anywhere near the swing speed, and even without flushing it, but really de-lofting the club, getting ball and then ground contact, and just getting much more energy transfer from club to golf ball. So what we said was we're going to work up to then what feels a full length backswing. So we went half, we went 3/4, and then we said, right, now on the full swing, can you still get that sensation? And it was just a very, very different flight. Launching lower, still getting out to a nice height. And even though the club head speed there is pretty much what it was when he was trying to knock the cover off it. There was no physical effort going into that swing, and we can see 88 mile an hour club head speed, ball speed at 121, launching at 14, and all of a sudden at 167, that's a 25-yard pickup with his irons. So all of a sudden, instead of hitting 5-iron, he's hitting 7 or 8-iron into the green. And hopefully you'll agree, if you've got something with loads more loft in your hand, you're also going to have more control. So you should hit more greens or hit it nearer to the flag. But it was definitely one of those that the more long swings he did, you started to see lose the feeling and revert back. So what we said was a great routine, and maybe if this is something that works for you, build this into your routine, is he had 2 little practice swings with the waist height swing, where he could feel really, really exaggerated. Then he'd hit the full shot and try and recreate that feeling. And we saw great strikes, actually lots of club head speed, but ball speed just kept going up. And as a result of that, we started seeing more and more distance, more carry, and certainly one of those things where he then actually said, he made the comment that he maybe didn't even need all that distance. And maybe when he feels he swings a little bit slower, he's got more control. But he's obviously, in the past, correctly always thought, if I take speed out, I'm going to hit the ball less far. Because if you don't change that impact position, you don't get the speed into the ball. So then he felt, if I swung very within myself and delivered the club correctly, could I still generate some nice club head speed with good ball speed, launch the ball nice and low, pick up that carry to 154, and even with that one that felt nice and within himself, it's still a club length longer. And I would always say as a coach, that's great, and if you want to go and play with that, definitely play with it, because it works. But then with practice, if you can then put that little bit of speed back in, but rehearse that feeling. We don't want to see that club fanning open and then really having to use the wrists and hands to square it up. Because even if you generate speed with these little muscles, there's that much going on at the bottom, it's very hard to time everything. So right hand on top, right hand feeling more on top. And if you want to then put a bit of speed back in, you get that speed, you get that strike, you're getting ball and then ground connection, and you start hitting it longer and more accurate than ever. But it's very, very easy. A lot of guys, like I said, and I do videos on it talking about lead wrist, but if you're one of those golfers who doesn't necessarily have a lot of awareness as to what's going on here, you might have lots of awareness with that right hand, or if you're a left-handed golfer, your left hand, the lower hand. Get that wrist more on top of the shaft on the way back and on top to impact, and I promise you, you will pick up at least 20 yards, even when you swing that little bit slower.